For 3 decades following the Cold War, the global economy operated under the assumption of a lasting peace dividend. Today, that assumption has collapsed. From kinetic conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Middle East to escalating tensions in the South China Sea, the world has entered a renewed cycle of great power competition. This chart tracks U.S. military expenditure as a percentage of GDP. The post-Cold War trend steadily dropped toward a 3% baseline. But as geopolitical risks mount, that trajectory is violently reversing, pushing next year's defense budget toward a staggering $1.5 trillion. This massive injection of capital is a direct reaction to the realities of current conflicts. Combat in places like Ukraine has proved that modern warfare still consumes enormous quantities of raw material, depleting the weapon stockpiles of NATO nations faster than they can be replenished. Yet, while artillery shells and traditional munitions are burning at alarming rates in Europe, military planners are looking elsewhere. The overarching strategic threat forcing this massive defense buildup is centered squarely in the Pacific. Control over land is no longer the primary measure of military success. In this new era, power flows directly from the security of the industrial and technological supply chains required to field and sustain a modern force. This map highlights the world's most vulnerable geopolitical bottleneck. Sitting just 130 kilometers from China, Taiwan manufactures over 90% of the world's advanced microchips. Any disruption to this narrow supply chain would paralyze the global economy and halt artificial intelligence development. U.S. defense officials no longer view this dynamic as a simple trade issue. Relying almost entirely on a foreign supply chain for the hardware that powers everything from smartphones to guided missiles is now recognized as a systemic national security vulnerability. To eliminate that risk, the United States is being forced to engineer a massive, multi-trillion-dollar reindustrialization effort to bring critical manufacturing back inside its own borders. This graphic introduces the 5 titans of traditional defense: Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and Boeing. Together, they form the core of America's military-industrial base. Their primary business is engineering kinetic hardware at an immense scale, manufacturing the world's most advanced nuclear submarines, stealth bombers, and complex missile defense networks. While these platforms possess overwhelming firepower, they come with a structural weakness. They are exceptionally expensive, require decades to develop, and struggle to adapt quickly to rapid shifts in battlefield tactics. This chart reveals a growing financial misalignment within that sector. Looking at the data for 2025, 4 of these 5 major contractors returned significantly more cash to their shareholders through dividends and stock buybacks than they reinvested into their own manufacturing infrastructure. By prioritizing those shareholder payouts over capital expenditure, these industrial giants have left themselves highly susceptible to supply chain bottlenecks, cost overruns, and sluggish production rates exactly when global demand is surging. The heavy metal built by these legacy contractors is essential for global deterrence, yet their decades-long procurement cycles simply cannot keep pace with the hyper-fast, software-driven reality of modern military conflict today. Recognizing that future conflicts will demand thousands of lower-cost systems deployed rapidly, the Pentagon is actively shifting its focus. Military planners are increasingly bypassing traditional prime contractors and looking directly to Silicon Valley. The doctrine of modern combat is being rewritten in real time. The focus is shifting towards systems that operate with mass and autonomy, relying heavily on artificial intelligence for targeting, swarms of uncrewed drones, and resilient commercial space infrastructure. Companies like Palantir, Anduril, Shield AI, and SpaceX are moving aggressively into this space. Unlike the legacy titans, these challengers are built on a foundation of fast iterating software, data networks, and artificial intelligence, rather than heavy manufacturing. But the most significant pressure comes from the major commercial tech giants, the hyperscalers. These technology companies possess financial firepower that allows them to build AI and compute infrastructure at a pace no government agency can match. This comparison makes the financial reality clear. The Pentagon's entire combined budget for procurement, research, and development is roughly $315 billion. In contrast, 4 of the largest U.S. technology companies are projected to spend over $700 billion on capital expenditures this year. Because cutting-edge military capabilities now require massive amounts of server space and computing power, this spending gap firmly relocates the center of gravity for defense innovation away from Washington and directly into the commercial tech sector. In a theater where decisions must be made in milliseconds, algorithmic speed, real-time data analytics, and artificial intelligence infrastructure are now equal in strategic value to aircraft carriers and ballistic missiles. The defense industry has expanded beyond a closed loop of shipyards and assembly lines. National security is now a deeply connected ecosystem. The military must seamlessly integrate commercial capabilities, relying on advancements in cloud computing, semiconductors, and critical minerals. The most successful entities over the next decade will be those that figure out how to fuse the immense, rigorous manufacturing scale of the legacy defense titans with the rapid, software-first iteration cycles of the Silicon Valley challengers. This structural pivot carries immense macroeconomic weight. To rearm and reindustrialize the domestic supply chain, the government will deploy trillions of dollars in new investment. A defense spending wave of this magnitude will inevitably drive up national debt and expand budget deficits, creating structural upward pressure on both inflation and interest rates across the broader economy. For those tracking capital flows, the landscape presents a stark contrast. Traditional defense stocks continue to offer predictable stability and cash flow, while the soaring valuations of new technology challengers reflect enormous growth expectations, alongside significant bubble risk. Geopolitics and technological advancement have rewritten the economics of global defense, setting the stage for one of the most substantial capital reallocations in modern history. This video provides only a brief overview of Richard Duncan's analysis. To watch the complete Macro Watch presentations and learn more about the forces reshaping the global economy, financial markets, defense, and artificial intelligence, visit richardduncaneconomics.com and subscribe to Macro Watch.